Do it. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Wait, what's this called? Big announcement coming soon? Yeah, 5, 4, 3,
Welcome
2,
to the
1.
Big Announcement Coming Soon podcast. We're here today with Nick Garvin. David should be joining us, and Mike is still off in South Africa. Nick, how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, good, man. Real good. Thanks. How are you?
Excellent. It's a good morning. And we've been throwing the graphic up, and I keep on forgetting to say our sponsor is SEKAI Protocol. That's data interoperability and real-world data for the metaverse and everything else. And Sakai IO if you want more information, or hit up me or David. And yeah, Sakai's been a great sponsor for a while and really doing a bunch of things, um, making a lot of progress. It's been an interesting couple of weeks. It's been going really well, and I'm excited to in the
Nice.
future be able to talk about that. But okay, that's the sponsor. Nick, what is up with meme cards today? You missed tonight's allow list, but it was a really small allow list.
Yeah, I mean it's a bit over allocated. The meme card is number 70 tonight. We're coming off of the heels of Punk 6529ers meme card 69, which was like notoriously well received because it was a crypto dick butt. And that one was great. I got on the phase two allow list for that, but that didn't even make it to phase two. Tonight, Wednesday, that is the second one of the week that's dropping, and yeah, unfortunately didn't make it on. It
So you say
seems,
didn't make it on, and it's by like number of other cards you hold, and then
yeah,
artist
so
picks some, I think, right? That's the two criteria.
yeah, so this one is a collaboration, and it's with, let me pull it up real quick. But yeah, no, typically when there is a collaboration that is an outside artist, meaning like not Punk 6529 or 6529er, when it's a different artist who is new to the memes, what you see is a reward to their holders. Tonight's drop is Neurocolor. Neurocolor is a call it's he's calling himself a psychofuturism glitch painting artist, and it's pretty much like if you could describe what tonight meme card looks like, that would be it, right? You got some Pepe, some Mojack, some other memes in there. It's an interesting card. I think what makes it unique is that it's scarce. It's only 777 tonight, with through only the top 300 meme card holders from um, the two seasons combined, and neuro card holders. I mean, so it's a tight one, right? There's going to be a lot of
So
complaint cards
so when you
that
say
come out
those
of this.
777, it's really 300 for those people who are in the meme collection, and the other set is saved for him. So it's almost like it's a 300 set for you guys.
Oh, I mean, yeah, like so they've also, I didn't count airdrops, and also what they keep for their the 659 museum and for the artists and the people involved on this. So if you actually were go to the Mint site now, right? Let's go there. If you were to go there now, although the edition size is claiming 777, what you're actually allowed to mint, which is going live in about 20 minutes, is, let's see here. Um, there's 564 left, right? So you're starting off
Hmm.
competing to a phase one, which is, got 1,000 holders on it, give or take, competing for 564 spots. Now, if there's anything left after that half an hour, they go to phase two, and then that gives you an opportunity if you are in the next 300, right? So what you're seeing here is like a ranking system by unique holders, and particularly those who hold season two memes. That seems to be the trend. But this one is, yeah, it's favoring obviously the new artist holders to a degree, but it's favoring those who hold a lot of season two cards.
Hmm. Hey, you said there's going to be a lot of complaint memes coming out, and we always see this for people who, if there's gas wars, there's all that, the response memes, but should there be? Like, do you think they're doing a fair job with this? Do you think it's
Oh, it's great. Yeah, yeah.
poorly gamified? Like, I know not everybody can get
No,
everything, but how is this set up? Did they do an okay
I
job?
think it's I think it's great because not everyone can get everything, right? I mean, one of the distributions a few cards back were like completely like they were completely random. It was like if you're in the bottom 1,000, right? It was
Hmm.
giving everyone a fair shot. They also have to remember that the airdrops are fair. Like everyone has equal opportunity to get an airdrop most of the time. Um, what you're seeing is probably a very strategic way to continue to keep people on their toes because there is no way to game this, and that's a good thing.
Good,
Um,
good.
they're even the way that they announce the artist, sometimes before, sometimes like hours before, sometimes a couple of days before. That also keeps people on their toes, so people aren't scooping up editions of like everyone that they think is coming up next, because that's not fair either, right? And we've seen that happen before. So I'd say that the team itself for 6529 has been very adaptable and very flexible to provide an equitable chance for as many as possible. I mean, obviously you got to pay to keep going, and you got to play, right? And that's part of it. But these memes are inexpensive, and if you've been here since day one, you're not shilling out much money,
Yeah,
to
and you
keep
said
going.
pay to keep going, and we'll bring that up again. And I want to talk about our newest NFT idea because we're trying something different. But before we do, Yuga, somebody floored all their Yugas.
That's right. OSF in the news today. OSF and Mando,
And OSF's the
notoriously
guy,
known.
the artist behind Wreck Guy. Who's Mando?
Yeah, no, the same. They're both of them are
Oh,
co-founders of the Rec Guy. So they're both notoriously known for being figureheads in that community. They unloaded about 71 Yuga assets today. I believe they're all Bored Apes. And there's a great write-up on their newsletter, which I highly recommend. It's called Degens. They send it out every day. They do a recap of crypto markets. They do a recap of NFTs. They do a recap of also legacy markets from time to time. But today in the DGen newsletter, he kind of went into detail as to why they decided to dump, you know, uh, all their Bay or all their BAYC. They go on to say that there was an $82 million of volume in market-wide sales just for Blur yesterday.
hmm.
That's a 70% dominance, right? Um, Anyways, in the last 24 hours, they said, if you've been following what we've been doing on Twitter, I decided to take profit on our apes. It was a tough emotional decision. Um, Certainly in no way reflects how they view Yuga. They go on to say that they're bullish on holding other side, Meta. They still have sewer passes, they still have Ape Coin, and being angel investors, right? Which is a big thing. But what they're talking about here is a bigger point, right? It's the liquidity provided by Blur right now. They say it's insane at the moment, and they never thought they'd be able to ever monetize the position that they were in without greatly impacting the market, right? Like what that means is, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe they could have found a bulk buyer or an OTC deal, or you wouldn't have, but you go through an auction house or something, but you'd have to pay fees. You
Hmm.
wouldn't be able to sell your entire portfolio above the floor price
Well, and that's something
in a
that's
matter
important
of
is people
minutes.
say the floor is 70 ETH, therefore my TFPs are worth this. Well,
Mm,
the lowest price to buy one is 70 ETH. Nobody's buying that. So the floor price
yeah,
is really below, and the more you sell, the further it pushes down, just like it would be a normal chart. And I think that's something that people might forget with that the idea of the liquidity is selling 71 board apes in one day instead of over
yes,
6 months to not kill the
yes,
floor. It makes sense. Follow liquidity, and then if they still like it, you can buy back in as that,
yeah.
slowly, and prices will dip and go up.
Yeah, and I mean, it's changing fast, right? The NFT space is changing very fast. Blur is a big catalyst for that change, whether
Hmm.
it's royalties, airdrops, circumventing OpenSea, or rewarding people. We've talked on the spaces last week about people getting $10,000 from the Blur airdrop, and also what you see now is just like where the liquidity is, and it's coming into PFP tokens, right? Two things that I think is a shortcoming for Blur is lack of a ENS,
Hmm.
opportunity,
Which
and
Flip just added.
yes, that's right, right? And then the other thing I think that Blur is missing out on, and maybe they'll adopt it soon, is this like the 1155 token, right? Everything that you see right now in terms of old PFP projects, they're pumping because you can bid low, you can do the Blur bids, you can get the loyalty program, you can unlist from OpenSea, start to get airdrop accumulation points for the next season,
Mm,
and that's all coming from the older tokens, right? That are yeah, your classic PFPs like Cool Cat, Suzuki, Bored Apes. I mean, there is speculation that even like what Jack Butcher did when he changed the Pepe metadata that took the floor from 0.19 to 0.86 overnight. There's
hmm
there's speculation that that was because they were onboarded by Blur. You were allowed to do the Blur bids. You were allowed to do the Blur, um, you know, listings, and those things itself
Which
incentivize holders.
incentivize really you're talking the gamification of trading on Blur because there's going to be more Blur airdrops. When we say season two, it's really building points essentially towards their next airdrop is what you're talking about.
Yeah, and if you looked at it the way that, you're familiar with yield farming and DeFi and stuff, right? Like right
hmm
now, everyone in the NFT world is just moving to the fucking best like APY, and that's Blur,
hmm
in a nutshell. Like if you could make a seamless comparison to what other people are doing for incentives and why they lock up or why they are literally becoming loyal to a new system, this is where the money is, right?
Okay, so we make NFTs, you and I, and we decided to do something different. 2 weeks ago, it was your idea, and as we had some hot weeks and some slow weeks, we realized going back, and you said paying to keep going in the memes, but going back
Yeah,
to collectors to keep buying, we realized was we were asking a lot of sometimes the same people.
yeah.
So you came up with a great idea, and kind of building on what some other NFT artists are doing of how to
Mm,
keep our artwork released, keep
mhm,
people. We want it to be in other people's hands, but we know not everybody. And we host Saturday Spaces with Tasita,
mhm.
and right there's so much on Manifold. There's so much art, and this is we just look at the free and cheap stuff, not even the more pricey stuff. So we found a solution of keep producing art, keep getting it in
Mm,
the hands of our holders without having an expensive airdrop on us,
mhm.
and slowly build a community. So talk like where did you come up with the idea, and what exactly is the mechanism here?
Yeah, I mean, like we just wanted to make something dynamic, right? We've seen it with OSF again, like with the wrecked cities, where the drawing itself changed from its normal color to red every time Bitcoin or Ethereum dropped 5%. You can go all the way back as looking at what Lit did with Robert De Niro and the faces, right?
hmm hmm
Um, you want something that reminds you that the tech that you have is dynamic, and it's not. I think we need to like continue to play in that space that allows us to innovate so that we use, like you said, the token as the window, the art changing,
Well, hold on.
representing our
What
journey.
exactly is it though? I don't think we've explained to the holders.
Hmm. I mean, I'd say it's a guarantee to go on a journey with us, because right now it's without trying to hype it up, it's a token that gives you more than one, you know, image, and it's not going to be stacked per se. It could be part of a story. It could be completely different. It could change when with our own evolution of
hmm
art. But I think what we're trying to do is create one central point that like allows our base to um, take part in like our evolution as artists, but also like I don't know, actively. I don't know I don't know like how to explain it. Like it's not. We
Well,
don't want them to.
we have
Yeah,
mutable metadata so we can change our image, and that's
yeah,
the artist journey we're going on. But as you're alluding to, and we haven't talked about this publicly yet, because it's changeable, and we're encouraging people to buy the token for the journey, not it is our art today. But
and
really it's the
eh,
token and what the token's going to deliver, whose art and where we go with it. Um, that's going to be the fun part too.
and that's the experiment, right? It's an art experiment, or you're asking people to go on a journey with you, so it takes some trust. But what we're promising is that like you will see that that our token itself will be like a window into a the most innovative, dynamic, like possibilities that are out there, because we're not trying to just like timestamp something in like create a meme or create a Pepe and then say like here's this one and then tomorrow here's a new one and then
Hmm.
splinter everybody's ETH and also like cloud up their maybe hidden folder. I don't know. We all have those, right? So let's just
Yeah.
like be real about it and say like how about we base this more around our community. I mean, it's not a community token per se, but it will be because
Yeah, there's no community,
who's
there's no Discord, but if you buy it, you kind of care. Like
yeah,
because
who's
it
to
is
say that
ongoing and
like
changing, it's not a one time buy it, cool piece of art, and then as we all like to collect art, you have that one. This is ongoing.
yeah, I mean, again, and like we've seen this with other projects that come out, right? If you leave the parameters open enough, you can play in a really fun space. Who's to say that we don't have a community-driven project that becomes like, maybe open sourced or collaborated upon by our most like loyal holders. You know what I mean? Like you've seen that happen with fake memes. You've
Hmm.
seen it happen with Holdapet and other projects. They are allowing the community and the holders to be the artists, to be the voice behind
Hmm.
it, to have agency. And I think that's like something that you can't really do when you're just trying to sell a JPEG and then get to the next JPEG so you can mint or
Hmm.
show as many manifolds as possible. Like we're over that, right? For us, I would just
Yeah.
like what you're getting with this is like you're getting to go along with the ride with us, and that's I think going to be fun, and we can make it worthwhile for sure. We're the first like change is happening tonight, right?
Hmm. As soon as we're done recording. And
Yeah.
actually, on that note, great talking NFTs with you, Nick, and we will be back in just a moment to talk SEC with David. And we're back. Joining us, David is here for the second half of the show. David, how are you doing today?
Yeah, good. How you doing?
Excellent, excellent. Nick and I had a good run talking about NFTs. We're going to take a little different look today, talk Bitcoin mining and the SEC. So
Awesome.
we got this article up. The SEC says, and they've been suing people, there are rules. People need to follow the rules. The crypto companies in this article, and then we've seen Jesse Powell of Kraken and Brian Armstrong say, what are the rules? Like we agree to follow them if you tell us what they are. So there's some disagreement there whether or not the rules exist. And at the same time, Hong Kong is now saying yes to Huobi. China's starting to allow some trading again. What I'm wondering is, there was a bit of competition for having exchanges and not being left behind in the crypto world a couple of years ago. Once China really banned Bitcoin again, and they've banned trading for the most part, it seems like now there's a rush back to it. Is there any kind of incentive for the government to say, instead of we want to suppress crypto, we're still ahead, but we don't want to be behind where China is in crypto, and maybe we need to look at how these regulations are going, because there seems to be some positive things happening over there.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, it almost kind of feels like China is like ahead of the rest of the world when it comes to crypto. And I mean, most people don't really think about it. And but I saw a tweet from someone else, and it's very true that like back in the day, Asia was like where it was at. Huobi and OKCoin and even like Bitflyer in Japan were like the main exchanges. And like little Coinbase in America servicing some of the people. Why that is, I'm not sure. Like, I think just innovative willingness to innovate. There's a lot of innovation over in Asia versus in the States at kind of like a person level. Like, I mean, in America, like you can hardly like book, your dentist or someone like that online. There's no like way to do that with an app or something like that. But that's pretty normal over in Asia. So
We
people are
saw
ready
in
for that kind
Asia,
of stuff.
we were there 80s and 90s into the 2000s in Indonesia, and instead of landlines, you got a phone, because they hadn't run the landlines, and the cell phones, then you did mobile banking from a lot earlier. And it seems like because there aren't so many entrenched things, they're catching up to different parts of the economy in different ways. They're able to jump further ahead. And then on the back of that, if you remember in 98, right, when the currency crash happened, started in Thailand, spread across Southeast Asia, they know in the way that Europeans and Americans don't,
that your currency can lose 90% of its value, like a shitcoin, over a weekend. And I think they're more open to look at it because that was 1998, right? It wasn't distant history that this happened over there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I think the more decentralized little businesses start to get, the more you kind of become in charge of your own thing. Like if you're an Uber driver, if you're an Airbnb host, whatever. Right now, you don't really consider crypto because you just know on banking. But I just saw Ingenico, which is a huge kind of like a PayPal version or like a money transmitter, just signed on to allow Bitcoin. So, I mean, if you think about it from a perspective of someone in like Argentina, would you rather collect in local currency or Bitcoin? Yeah, man, now collection Bitcoin because who knows what's going to happen, right? So that's kind of interesting. I think also, but when it comes to like governments, I kind of think we attribute like too much to like centralized thinking. Like I don't think, for example, I don't think Xi Jinping has really mentioned crypto more than once in his life. I think it's more kind of like local business owners, local power station owners who are wasting electricity now that could be putting it to Bitcoin mining, talking to officials, maybe bribing officials, et cetera, and so forth. Like the game kind of, when there is wasted efficiency, so to speak, available, it always kind of creeps back. It's like corruption in a system. Like it'll creep in if it's available to do so. It doesn't negate the fact that, so for example, in Hong Kong, it might be kind of like, okay, who can trade in Hong Kong? Well, people in Hong Kong can, and rich Chinese who go to Hong Kong to trade or, figure out a way with VPN and stuff like that. It largely cuts off a lot of the people in China that want to keep out of crypto, but it allows the rich elites to kind of play in the way that they wanted to, and it makes everyone happy. So it's kind of like a backdoor way of letting things in a little bit more. Now, whether America has to respond to that because it just becomes like, yep, you can totally trade USDT over on Hong Kong exchanges, and America, you can either join in on that or lose out on that. And I guess they would choose to hopefully stay in.
Exactly. It feels like the game started to be taken away, and as it's been brought back, it's, do you want to play or do you want to forfeit? And yeah, we don't forfeit, so it'll be interesting how they try to catch up.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, a lot of people are kind of talking about like, yeah, what a DeSantis like presidency would do and things like that for crypto. I still don't think that it's like a person who's going to make these decisions. It's going to be like a loophole that causes. So, for example, like a really interesting thing happening right now is on March the 7th, there'll be the ruling on the ETF for
grayscales.
It's rumored that they might win. Yeah. And if they win that, that's just massive because it totally changes a lot of the game for, it makes it possible for institutions to safely buy Bitcoin through an ETF structure. Also makes all the other ETFs likely to go through and starts changing a lot of the other things. So I think,
and that would be,
it's almost kind of like
would be a court decision, not an SEC decision. And they've talked about their willingness to bring it up to the Supreme Court. So like you said, even though the government thinks one way, one company on a court with a judge can push things a different way.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like they could argue it's unconstitutional what the SEC is doing. And as a result, answer in their favor, which is, because essentially that's the truth, right? So SEC wants to protect people, or is supposed to protect people, investors. The Bitcoin Trust operated legally, sees a way to protect investors even more, starts to face a problem with their product because they don't have this thing, keeps appealing to the SEC, who keeps denying them and not saying anything about it. And now they're in a lot of trouble, and you could argue that SEC has culpability of lack of fiduciary responsibility for taking care of it. They just let the problem fester. Yeah. So
they wanted to regulate rather than protect investors or get back. I don't know what they were trying to do because they weren't, like you said, they weren't providing the regulation asked. And actually Gensler now, I want to say Monday or last Friday, the Republicans started talking about House hearings in the States about his involvement with FTX and SAM and what they were going to do about giving them passes with things, and then why they've delayed and denied other things, kind of going into the SEC of, you're supposed to set regulations, make sure people disclose, but not really take sides.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think probably the outcome will be similar to like regulation where it's still illegal federally, but it's so not illegal now that it's just a joke, and then eventually just needs someone to kind of like change it to legal. But I think it's a fool's hope to think that they're going to try and, I mean, it's kind of like the proverb, right, or whatever. The last part is they fight you and then you win. The fight you part doesn't happen quickly. Like, that happens over a long time. They keep trying to destroy it, and then they eventually realize that they're losing so much. It's like the drug war, right? How much money do you have to spend losing the war, and yet how long are you going to do it? Or embargoing Cuba, right? Like, I mean, so it's not like bad decisions don't continue irrespective of logic, but because it's such a global money-making thing, being left out of it is kind of a big deal. So I think that'll turn it.
Yeah. And when you say global, our discussions in 2018 were very different. Before banks were allowed to custody, before German banks were custodying, before the Swiss stock exchange was offering access to crypto, it really felt like if institutions don't get on board, it still is a libertarian anarchist, people who believe in money and internet money playground. Now it feels like there's a lot of people who are involved with the government in some way who are also involved with crypto, who aren't just the retail investors.
Yeah, totally. I mean, exactly. When there's money to be made, eventually the thing will happen, as long as it can be best served by the people who, and I think it is kind of coming to the fore, but yeah, it'll be interesting because a lot of support's coming out for like Europe and their MiCA approach. Like, wow, they actually have a regulatory framework and it makes sense and it'll roll out over years and et cetera and so forth. SEC, why aren't you doing that? And you start losing a lot of business over to Europe, and then it's not really the plan of the whole jobs for the future.
Like it or not,
idea, right?
With MiCA, it is clear. It's signed and it's something to follow, and you can bet on that being your business model going forward. So you're talking about money to be made. They are Bitcoin mining in
Iceland.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just kind of just, I don't know, just a random thing I was reading today. And if you kind of think about Bitcoin mining, you're like, okay, where does it happen? And like during the bull market, it was happening in like New York State and random places where obviously it was never going to be efficient. And so it was largely happening. It was like, we're going to do a Bitcoin mining operation. And then people would like VC invest in that idea. So they would raise more than the actual operation would be able to kind of leverage. And it just, unless of course everything took off, then it didn't. And so it's going down. But like when you, so at this point in the cycle, you're starting to look for like, where is Bitcoin still able to be mined profitably given the circumstances? And so at the real dire end of the scale, you're looking at energy that's not, oh, should I produce energy for the grid or should I mine Bitcoin with this? You're looking at energy that's not going to be used otherwise. That is capacity. And so Iceland, it was so this happens in like Mongolia and China and stuff, and like, you know, the difference between
like
how much a dam can output in the winter,
the dams, and they produce the power when the water flows, when the sun shines, regardless of how much we consume.
Exactly. Yeah. And summer is going to be needing less than winter, etc. So so that can be converted into money, Bitcoin money, through mining. And so an efficient way of doing that in Iceland is they have a huge power capacity because they have lots of geothermal and essentially really low electricity costs, and not a lot of places that electricity can go because they're an island in the middle of, you know, the ocean. So as a result, but it doesn't just require that. It also requires like there to be like high level of education in the country, a level of innovative support. And that's kind of like a perfect opportunity where Iceland fits the bill, where it can take advantage, where for example, Venezuela should be like, you know, mining city central of the world, right? Because it has such low costs of gas and electricity over there. But it isn't, because it just can't get it. It doesn't have these kind of structural elements. So but yeah, so I mean, it's kind of interesting to look at. It's almost like you could imagine in the future, places like Iceland would become essentially like Bitcoin countries, if you will. Like that's the most logical. Like El Salvador's volcano bonds are interesting, but Iceland is already essentially a country. I would be curious to know what its GDP dedicated to crypto activity, mining related, there is, because, you know, especially as it goes up in value.
Right.
It's like maybe it's like Norway's new because of Norway's
the
massive
Norwegian
sovereign
the
wealth fund
kroner
and
is such a
the
great
oil.
well-backed currency.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's an interesting point because as you're producing electricity, and that's what they're so upstate New York is a lot of hydropower, and it powered all these factories that don't no longer exist. So the infrastructure to produce excess megawatts is still there. And that actually was a big social one of people pushing back and saying, we don't want this. We don't want to waste power on it. And well, the power is going. Now, some of these, they were also putting coal plants back online. And it's hard to tell the story between the two, right, to people who aren't deep into Bitcoin mining. So the coal power also means that they're like, well, why is this other one running with hydro? Why is it stealing our power? And you're like, well, it's not until the factories come back. And in a way, it almost keeps the power company in business until the one day America ever gets manufacturing back. And that's upstate New York, Pennsylvania, all that whole area. There's tons of power, and all we do is lose manufacturing jobs.
Yeah, totally. I mean, well, that's it. Like, if you treat it like a utility, kind of like subsidizing steel, because you know it's going to lead to better innovation with steel products, then that's one thing. But I think they're not totally wrong. It just depends on the laws. Like, so for example, if you put in a Bitcoin mining plant and your grid can handle this much electricity, and suddenly it starts to require this much, then they have to make a decision about what they're going to put in to generate that more electricity in the future. And there's only so much water, and they're probably going to build a coal power plant to because it's the fastest one to make up for this sudden increase in mining. And so it's kind of like, if there are environmental factors that prevent that, then they will. Otherwise, the Bitcoin miner will compete for power on the grid. And if the Bitcoin price is high enough, it will drive the power of the grid price higher.
See that, and that's the variable. Traditionally, and I think it had to be above, maybe it was 50K, where you could plug in at kind of a retail setting, because most miners do that they buy large amounts, long contracts of buying the unused power and not tapping in, so they pay a lower rate. But it'd be interesting because you're saying in some places, Iceland, I remember Kazakhstan, Mongolia, when things left China, it was still cheaper to mine at the consumer rate for Bitcoin when it was up high. Whereas, these days you have to be watching your margin on that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you and me used to take environmental science back in high school, and it's kind of like introducing a foreign species, or not even a foreign species, just kind of like benefiting one species in the ecosystem more, and it grows. It like a whole bunch of deer start showing up, and more because, in this case, Bitcoin mining price is being supported, so the electricity is getting used more and more. It messes with the ecosystem. It will have unknown effects, and so you can't quite just say it'll be fine, all that power is unused, because that's where it starts. But then what happens is the power is more kind of like, well, I could mine Bitcoin, or I could keep that apartment block down the street that's a project for homeless people with more heating, turn that down a little and keep the evil decisions start getting made in different areas. And so it's really interesting, but I mean, that's the question, I guess, for America, is like, to what extent does Bitcoin mining enter the power grid? And when it does, what is it treated like? And how much power and control do you have over your power grid and what it gets used for? Like, can you say, okay, I know they put out guidance like, do your washing at night, not in the day, because of whatever, for balancing. I don't know.
Because running ACs in Arizona, so power, the consumption is up in the day and down at night. And you said, how is Bitcoin mining treated? What's it used for? You've heard about people talk about the green power movement. Solar will be subsidized by Bitcoin because you can build out a solar plant, and if you're not selling enough, right, the Bitcoin miners buy up the excess. It helps you meet your bottom line because it's still more expensive to produce than coal power. Same idea with wind, but the idea of Bitcoin mining driving as an initial consumer, driving green energy. How much weight do you think that holds?
I think it could hold a lot of weight. I think it just needs to be done a lot more, maybe a little more differently than we think of it. Like, so instead of a solar power plant also innovating and being like, we're going to do Bitcoin at the same time, you have one expertise here and you have one expertise here. So it's almost like you want to be like, hey, everyone in solar, you guys are really good at this. Do you have like a power socket where all the electricity from the excess stuff can just be like sucked into this miners that will drive up on a big truck and then like plug it in for this specific 3 months of the season where you're not using all the electricity or whatever? I think those kind of things would
yeah,
would be how it would work.
mobile temporary mining, depending on. That's an interesting new idea. Let's wrap it up there. Good to hear from you this week,
Yeah.
and we will be back next. Oh, predictions. I didn't ask Nick. We are not at 26, but
Still not came up hit to 25, but yeah, they just came out with the BPS that it's likely to be 25, irrespective of everyone's fear. So I would argue it's going to be green tomorrow, and 26 is on the card.
wait. So when you say the BPS 25, so the Fed will raise rates
Next.
25 basis points. Bitcoin will be at 26K, not 25K.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, and everyone was afraid they were going to raise them 50 because of the recent sticky inflation numbers.
And the good
but it
jobs
doesn't look
reports
to
and
be the
stuff.
case. Yeah, but no. So yay.
Awesome. We'll see what happens next week, and I'll catch you then, man.
All right, catch you soon.
Wait, what's this called? Big announcement coming soon? Yeah. 5, 4, 3.